before the 20th century gave us the devastation of World War I, history witnessed another war that shook continents and shaped the future of empires. This was the Seven Years' War, often referred to as the first true world war in history, a conflict that involved multiple continents, pivotal leaders, and key battles. It reshaped the political map of Europe, North America, and beyond for centuries. Chapter 1. How did it start? The origins of the Seven Years' War lie in longest-standing rivalries between Europe's great powers, particularly two intertwined conflicts: Britain versus France and Prussia versus Austria. These powers had clashed repeatedly in previous wars, but the mid-18th century brought new tensions and rivalries. In North America, Britain and France had long been competing for territorial control. Both sought dominance over the Ohio River Valley, a rich and strategically important region. Britain's colonial expansion, driven by settlers and traders, clashed with France's vast fur trade network and alliances with indigenous tribes. Tensions boiled over in 1754 when a young British officer named George Washington, yes, the same man who would later lead the American Revolution, led a force into the contested territory and clashed with French troops at Fort Duquesne. This skirmish, known as the Battle of Jumonville Glen, was small in scale, but it sparked the wider conflict between Britain and France. Meanwhile, across Europe, Prussia and Austria were on the brink of war over the valuable region of Silesia. This region had been seized by Prussia during the War of Austrian Succession from 1740 to 1748, much to Austria's resentment. Maria Theresa, the Empress of Austria, sought to reclaim Silesia from the ambitious and brilliant military leader Frederick II of Prussia, better known as Frederick the Great. She formed an unlikely alliance with France, Russia, and Sweden to challenge Frederick's rising power, while Prussia found an ally in Great Britain. These two rivalries, one colonial, one continental, set the stage for a global conflict that would embroil much of the world. Chapter 2. Which countries were involved? The Seven Years' War was a true global conflict involving major European powers and extending to their colonies across the world. Let's take a look at the key players. Great Britain sought to expand its empire by defeating France, focusing on North America and India. Key figures included King George II, George III, and Prime Minister William Pitt the Elder. France, led by King Louis XV, aimed to counter British ambitions, but faced significant defeats in North America and India. Prussia, led by Frederick the Great, aimed to retain Silesia and withstand attacks from Austria, Russia, and France. Austria, under Empress Maria Theresa, aimed to regain Silesia. Despite failing to do so, Austria remained a Central European power. Russia, initially allied with Austria and France, delivered major blows to Prussia. After Empress Elizabeth's death, Russia withdrew under Peter III. Spain joined in 1761 to protect its colonies against Britain, suffered losses including Havana and Manila. Native American tribes, many allied with France to resist British expansion, with leaders like Chief Pontiac later resisting British rule. Other European powers such as Sweden, Portugal, and the smaller states were involved as participants or allies. Chapter 3. How long did it take? From 1756 to 1763, the world was engulfed in a war that stretched across 7 long, brutal years. Battles were fought not just in Europe but in colonies and territories across North America, the Caribbean, India, and even the Philippines. In Europe, Prussia, led by Frederick the Great, faced Austria, Russia, and France. Despite being outnumbered, Frederick's military genius shone at the Battle of Rossbach. Yet despite his victories, Frederick's situation was precarious. His enemies kept coming, and at one point it seemed Prussia might be crushed. The tide turned when Russian Empress Elizabeth died in 1762, and her successor, Peter III, admired Frederick and quickly withdrew Russia, saving Prussia from defeat. In North America, the war is often referred to as the French and Indian War. British forces led by generals such as James Wolfe and Jeffrey Amherst fought a series of campaigns against French troops and their Native American allies. The turning point came in 1759 when Wolfe led a daring assault on the fortress city of Quebec. At the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, both Wolfe and the French commander Louis Joseph de Montcalm were killed, but the British emerged victorious. This victory effectively sealed the fate of French Canada. In India, the British East India Company, under the command of men like Robert Clive, battled French forces for control of key trading posts. The decisive Battle of Plassey in 1757 marked a turning point in the conflict, allowing Britain to establish dominance over much of India. The war's global reach was staggering. On the seas, the British Navy clashed with the French and Spanish fleets, winning key battles like the Battle of Quiberon Bay in 1759, which ensured British naval supremacy. The Caribbean, too, was a theater of conflict, as Britain captured valuable French sugar islands such as Guadeloupe and Martinique. Chapter 4. What was the result of it? By 1763, the war had devastated much of Europe and the world. It ended with two major treaties, the Treaty of Paris and the Treaty of Hubertusburg. These treaties redrew the global map and set the stage for new empires and revolutions. Britain emerged as the world's foremost colonial power. With the Treaty of Paris, Britain gained vast territories, including Canada, Florida, and parts of India. It also secured its dominance over key trade routes and islands in the Caribbean. The British Empire was now the largest in the world, but this victory came at a price. The cost of the war would lead to new taxes on the American colonies, sparking tensions that would eventually lead to the American Revolution in 1775. France was left humiliated. It lost most of its colonial empire, including Canada and India, and was burdened with war debt. These losses, along with growing internal discontent, sowed the seeds for the French Revolution a few decades later. France's colonial ambitions were shattered, and its status as a global superpower diminished. Prussia held on to Silesia and emerged as a major European power under Frederick the Great. The war solidified Prussia's place in European politics and paved the way for the eventual unification of Germany in the 19th century. Austria, though defeated in Silesia, remained a major European power and would continue to influence the politics of the continent for decades to come. Spain lost Florida to Britain but gained the French territory of Louisiana, maintaining a foothold in the Americas despite its setbacks in the Caribbean and Pacific. Russia, having withdrawn from the war, retained much of its influence, but its role in Europe would only grow in the years that followed. The 7 Years' War didn't just reshape borders and colonies, it left lasting consequences for the nations involved. In North America, the British victory led to new taxes on the colonies, sparking outrage and resistance that culminated in the American Revolution. In France, the loss of colonial territory combined with economic hardship set the stage for the French Revolution. The war also marked a turning point for British India. With France's defeat, Britain emerged as the dominant power in the subcontinent, eventually consolidating its rule all over India. This would have profound effects on the region's history, politics, and culture for centuries. As we look back on the 7 Years' War, It is clear that this was not merely a conflict over territory. It was a turning point in the global balance of power, affecting the fate of nations, empires, and even entire continents. For Britain, it marked the beginning of a period of unrivaled colonial dominance, but also sowed the seeds of unrest in its American colonies, which would soon seek independence. For France, the war was a catalyst for internal upheaval, contributing to the financial crisis and discontent that would ignite the French Revolution. The war also reshaped the future of India, where British victories over French forces solidified the East India Company's control, setting the stage for nearly 2 centuries of British rule. Figures like Robert Clive and Sir Eyre Coote emerged as key architects of British dominance in the region, and the consequences of their actions would reverberate through Indian history long after the war ended. In Europe, the war confirmed Prussia as a rising military power under Frederick the Great, who had not only preserved his kingdom's independence but also established Prussia as a major player in European politics. His brilliant use of strategy and military innovation allowed him to outmaneuver much larger and wealthier enemies, earning him a lasting place in military history. Chapter 5: The War's Long-Term Impact. But beyond the immediate political and territorial shifts, the Seven Years' War had a profound cultural and social impact. For many European powers, the financial strain of the conflict led to significant internal reforms. In Britain, the war had led to the accumulation of massive debt, prompting the government to impose new taxes, such as the infamous Stamp Act and Townshend Acts, which has sparked resentment in the American colonies. These financial pressures, combined with the ideological ferment of the Enlightenment, would eventually lead to the American colonists declaring their independence in 1776. Meanwhile, in France, the war's economic consequences weakened the monarchy. The government's financial mismanagement and inability to recover from the costly defeat in the war contributed to widespread poverty and unrest, setting the stage for the French Revolution in 1789. Key figures like Louis XVI, who would face the revolution head-on, inherited a nation that had been destabilized in part by the disastrous results of the Seven Years' War. In the Caribbean, the war had a more direct economic impact. The British conquest of French sugar colonies such as Guadeloupe and Martinique was a major boon for British trade. However, these islands were eventually returned to France in the Treaty of Paris, but the short period of British control highlighted the strategic importance of the Caribbean in global commerce. The war also had devastating consequences for the indigenous populations of North America. Tribes that had allied with the French, such as the Algonquin and the Huron, found themselves at the mercy of expanding British settlers after the war, leading to further conflicts and the eventual displacement of many Native American people. In many ways, the Seven Years' War was a catalyst for the modern world. It was the first conflict that would truly be called a world war, fought across continents and oceans with far-reaching consequences. The British Empire's triumph laid the foundation for the global dominance it would enjoy in the 19th century. However, the war also planted the seeds of rebellion and revolution, as seen in America and France. Even beyond the battlefield, the war accelerated changes in global trade, diplomacy, and governance. Britain's victory allowed it to dominate the global trading system, but it also forced European powers to rethink their colonial strategies. France, for instance, shifted its focus away from North America and toward rebuilding its influence in the Caribbean and Africa, while Spain sought to consolidate its grip on its remaining New World colonies. As we wrap up our exploration of the Seven Years' War, it's clear that this conflict was more than just a series of battles. It was a transformative event that reshaped the global landscape. From the battlefields of Europe to the shores of North America and the sands of India, its ripples influenced empires, sparked revolutions, and set the stage for the modern world. At History Mysteries, we delve into these pivotal moments in history, uncovering the hidden stories and the far-reaching impacts that continue to shape our world today. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated on our latest episodes. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Join us next time as we unravel more historical enigmas and discover the echoes of the past that resonate in our present. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep unraveling the mysteries of history with History Mysteries.